If you would not be forgotten as soon as you were dead, either write something worth reading or do something worth writing. That's Benjamin Franklin.
Welcome to the Instinctive Influencers podcast, a show where influence becomes one of your tools for success. Now, here are your hosts, Brian Weber and Ed Haley.
Hi, I'm Brian.
And I am Ed.
And this is the Instinctive Influencers podcast. How you doing, Ed?
I'm doing great, man. I always feel better post-workout, post everything. The day is rolling, and I got a date to go to the movies with my wonderful wife. So those are always recipes for a good day. Yes.
Heck yeah, man. Well, you know what? And I have to throw it out there because I'm going to have to put your business on the street, my friend. So here it is. We are a couple days after a certain list was released. And I have to say to you, as a truly great friend of mine, congratulations, my friend, for making the Master Sergeant cutoff.
Thank you, my friend. Hey, it's been a long, hard road to get there. I am very grateful that the military, the Army, saw potential in me to continue. But it does add some time, man. I'm old.
I know.
I'm ready. But yeah, no, it's awesome. And so, honestly, you were the first person to notify me that I had made it because of the time difference and stuff. By the time it got published back in the States, I was well into bed. So,
Yeah.
But it got me to start thinking about most influential people in my career. And there's a long list of mentors and people who have influenced me. But, there's one guy that really, it's no way anybody else could have had more of an impact on my career than this one individual. So back in 2010, I was at Fort Drum and I was a sergeant E5, and they were trying to get me to re-enlist, and they were saying, hey, retention control points coming back, which basically means, hey, you've been this rank and you've been in the Army this many years, so they're going to pretty much ask you that at the end of your contract you leave. And they were like, hey, we can re-enlist you. You'll get 6 more years. That'll put you at 18 years and 10 months. At that point, the magic number in the Army is 18 years. Much after that, they're just going to let you retire. So they're like, you'll retire as a sergeant, but you'll retire. And to me, there's nothing wrong with that, because honestly, if you do 20 years and you retire as a sergeant, you still did 20 years. But mentally at that point, I was in a place where I was like, I'm not retiring as a sergeant. My maturity level was such that I just thought it was a bad thing. And Sergeant First Class Patrick Arrigo, he was a maintenance guy, and he was in the process of his own retirement after 20 years of service. And he pulled me aside. He heard me saying these things about I'm not re-enlisting, I'm getting out. And he pulled me aside and he said, hey, I just want you to know one thing, that when the retirement check comes in the mail, there'll be no rank on it. It's just going to have your name, and it's just going to be a check for your years of service. And I thought about that, and I talked to my wife about it. And the bottom line is I re-enlisted. Because of that exact statement. 100%, nothing else. It was that statement. And so that was 2010. I go on from there. I go to Fort Campbell. 2012, I make staff sergeant finally, which I had no idea. I hadn't been looking at the promotion list. My wife actually called me on my cell phone I wasn't supposed to have because I was in training in Louisiana, and told me. So I made the staff sergeant. 3 years later, I made sergeant first class. And then here I am now going to make master sergeant. And, if it wasn't for Sergeant Arrigo retired, I would have gotten out the Army. If it hadn't been for that moment, that perfect setting, him saying that, and the respect that I had for him as a person, I wouldn't be where I am. So I'm grateful to him and his amazing influence he has had, not just on my career, but honestly on my life. Because I get out E5, who's to say what would happen from there? Now, I've added several $100s to my retirement check. I've brought more money into my house. We've been to Germany now. So it's just a huge influence impact he had on me, Brian.
That's just awesome, brother. I mean, just to hear a story like that, and to know that there are people out there that can have that type of influence on us. I kind of feel the same way about certain people who I've met throughout my career, and I've had contact with, and I've learned from. But I mean, the fact is that individual, he had such an effect upon you that now here you are, over 20 years. And now you're going to be basically promoted to Master Sergeant, which is, I'm telling you, it's not an easy feat. So listeners out there, if you're not a part of the military, I would tell you that to reach that level, it's really an honor. I can tell you, like, even when I was giving my speech when I got pinned, I choked up, because I couldn't believe such a thing, and then they thought I was good enough for it, and to know that you also are going to be there, like. I told you over the message when I sent congratulations, brother. As soon as I saw your name, I got goosebumps. I was like, yes. Now we can call it the E16 show.
Yeah, the E16 show. Just so you're aware, when I finally got your message, Brian, I was literally in my backyard. It was 4 a.m. and I was watching my dog Patton take a poo. And I saw that message, and I very quickly grabbed her when she finished, brought her in the house, and woke my wife up.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's crazy. But you know what? And the thing is, I was glad you brought up that story. I really was, because I think it falls right into today's topic and what we're going to discuss today. I think we have a lot to talk about. Hopefully we don't go too far overboard with it, but it's really about creating a legacy of influence, right? For instance, that sergeant at the time, he influenced you, and you didn't probably realize it then, but now you look back and you think about that was his legacy of influence. That's the type of person he was. He knew how to keep people motivated to do the things. I mean, he was going through his process then. He had no skin in the game at that moment if you stayed in or got out. And that was the legacy he left, that he wanted to continue to motivate people, even though it's not really his job anymore. And that's the type of thing we're going to look at, So today we're going to get into, audience, today's topic is legacy influence and how you leave that legacy influence. All right. Ed, you got anything else before we jump right into this?
Yeah. Just that, you're 100% correct, Brian. Like, I'd only known him a couple years. I was only in that unit for 3 years total. I'd only known him for a little while, and I had only worked directly with him for about 6 months before he got promoted to Sergeant First Class and was moved to take over bigger and better things. So, like you said, he really didn't have a skin in the game, and him and I would pass each other, and we would speak, and we were, cordial, obviously, and respectful, because he was senior to me, but just so a few years later, and I told you, I ran into him. I was traveling, and I was up near Fort Drum, stopped at a gas station on my way to Canada. And just random, man. I went in to get something to eat, and my wife was in there, and he was in the store. And I got the opportunity to thank him face to face when I made Sergeant First Class. I got the opportunity to thank him face to face for that moment. And of course, he was humble. No, I really didn't do anything. No, you did more than you'll ever know you did. But yeah, and I think what we do as leaders and influencers, our legacies are. I think they're very important. I think they're, critical to who we are as people.
Absolutely, man. And how we go about it is critical to how people remember us down the road too. I do have like a little bit of pride in who I am, and I don't want people to down the road say, "Oh yeah, I know who Weber was. He was blah blah blah," in a bad negative tone. You know what I mean? So
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. All right, so we're going to get right into this. Basically, pulling some information from two different sources. You've heard us talk about previously, From the Green Notebook, which is a great website. I'm going to make sure that I'll attach this particular article. I'm only using a little bit from it, a very small amount. I'm going to attach that to the show notes so you can click on it and you can read it over yourself. But also, we're going to pull from another really cool article from, I would say a mentor for me when I read any of his material, and that's from Jim Rohn. Jim Rohn is, he's known for many great speeches he's had, and just the wisdom and how he likes to turn things to help people learn better. So we're really going to pull a lot from Jim Rohn, but a little bit from the Green Notebook, because it is a great source for those looking for, trying to help themselves develop a little bit more. All right, so right off the bat, let me read what I got here, and then we're going to talk about it. When you look back at your contributions throughout your career, what will matter most to you? How will you judge yourself and expect to be judged? Too often, as leaders, we do ask ourselves these simple questions throughout our everyday lives. We wait until the end. Then we examine the tough questions. Did I do all I could? Did I put enough energy in the right areas? Did I make a difference? Instead, we should pose this question all the time. What will be your legacy, and how will you achieve it? A little bit further, they go into another little section here about legacy principles and lessons learned. So I'm just going to read this little tiny bit, and then we're going to get right into about how we actually leave that legacy. Discipline your leadership energy. Do first things first. I love that idea. Do first things first. We all have limited time and energy. Therefore, it is essential that we remain disciplined in executing our priorities, communicate your priorities, and hold yourself and your team accountable to these goals. Resist distractions. Do first things first, and be ruthless with your time, money, and workforce. So with that, Ed, when you think about being ruthless with your, let's just say your time and money, and maybe even workforce, what does that what kind of picture does that paint in Ed's head?
So this is we talked about it on previous episodes when we reviewed the book about great leaders. This is my problem with meetings, because to me sometimes meetings are excellent and there's some value added, but then sometimes they do waste my time. They waste those valuable resources. So that's kind of where it takes me. It may be a little bit off, but that's where this really leads me to, to go to meetings and then realize, okay, so if I realize this meeting is no value added, I'm probably not coming when you send me a calendar invite next time. That's me being ruthless with my time. My time is important. I'm not coming in there sitting doing, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Oh, it would be good to have you. Okay. I've been invited to meetings here. Hey, it'd be good to have somebody from your section there. Okay, well, what are you looking for from us in particular? Well, just to be there. So what's in it for us? What's in it for our section as a whole? Where's the value? Well, really it's just to have you there. Okay, yeah, I won't be there. That's just me, trying to protect my resources. And yeah, you gotta be ruthless. You can't be, well, if you say maybe, and I may go the first time. I may go. Yeah, there's no value added from you. Okay, let me check it out. But that second time, you can believe I'm not coming.
Yeah, exactly. And one of the things that it came to my mind as soon as I read that, the first time I read that article, that one sentence, the very next thing that came to my mind is actually from previous episodes we just did with Kevin Cruz's book, Great Leaders Have No Rules. And I think about each chapter that we covered, and I think about, in a sense, that's being ruthless, because you're basically saying, okay, this is the plan. This is the direction I'm going, and I'm not going to waver from this, right? And that's, to me, that's how you're ruthless with your time, your money, your workforce, and that will help you set that legacy. Now, we're going to go through a whole group of, I would say 9 rules or so of how to continue that. But I just wanted to kind of point out that you kind of have to have that, my mind is made up, I want to leave a legacy, and I need to be ruthless in engaging that legacy. Now, that's the thing. Your behavior, personally, this is the way I see it, behavior shouldn't be constantly geared towards the legacy. It's your behavior is geared towards doing these other 9 things, which will generate the legacy. Used to have a sergeant major quite some time back. He used to say some things that were just crazy, but there was one thing he always said that I truly, truly felt would be the best advice I'd ever heard anyone given. And I kind of felt this way myself, so that's why I always thought it was the best. But he always said, he's like, listen, don't do things just to make your NCOR look good. Do things because it's the right thing to do as a non-commissioned officer, and it will write your NCOR for you. Does that make sense, bud?
Mm-hmm. That makes complete sense. It makes complete sense because I mean, I've always believed that, and I've always been taught that. Like, just you do what you're supposed to do,
Mm-hmm.
and the rest will take care of itself. The NCOER, your evaluation, whatever, it'll take care of itself. But do what you're supposed to do. Make
Exactly.
the difficult decisions, and execute those difficult tasks, and you'll be fine.
Exactly. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna get into these 9 areas that Jim Rohn talks about when he's talking about basically leaving a legacy. So I'm gonna go right into the very first part, and then we'll jump on those 9. Jim Rohn, the philosopher who has left an undeniable legacy of time-proven principles and wisdoms, shares his secret for making an impact. You know me. I'm a philosopher. I love principles. Yes, actions are great, and I talk about them regularly. But the important stuff is what lies underneath the principles, Rohn says. Here are the principles he says he must commit to in order to leave the legacy we desire. All right, so number 1, right off the bat, Ed. Life is best lived in service to others. This doesn't mean that we do not strive for the best for ourselves, but it does mean that in all things we serve other people, include our family, coworkers, and friends. How would you describe that, Ed? In let's say your own words, like life is best lived in service to others.
Taking care of soldiers. That's what we do. But that's not what stood out for me, Brian. So what stood out for me is as a young leader, right? I was so focused on taking care of soldiers, right? And being in service to them that I wasn't focusing on my own career. And in this first one, he says it does mean that in all things we serve other people, including our family, blah, blah. He says this doesn't mean that we do not strive for the best for ourselves. So as a young leader, I had to find the balance and what was best for me and in the service of my subordinates. And I struggled with that very early. And that's kind of what really, as you read it, that's what popped for me.
It sounds almost like if I would have picked out another book, The Dichotomy of Leadership. You maybe you've heard of it. That particular book, I think of that though. I think of, like, for instance, I had to take care of them, but I also had to take care of me. So I had to have a dichotomy there to make sure that I'm meeting both.
Yeah.
Obviously, if I take care of, and I'm just saying the soldiers for now, because this can work for civilian entity also. So just replace the word soldier when we say it with just employees. But if I take care of the soldiers, I've always heard this, they'll take care of the mission. So my focus as a senior leader has to be on my people, right? I still have to have focus. Now, don't get me wrong. We still have to have focus on what the task at hand is, because sometimes we have to use talent management to pick the right people for the right job. Sometimes we have to use good time management also, because you can't just hand out a task at the end of the day. You may want to, back up a time frame or look at, okay, well, this would be the right time to deliver this because I need it done by X time, right? And another thing too is you have to think about the climate. If you're going to throw a task at them, you give it to the wrong people at the wrong time in a real poor climate. And when I say climate, I mean the atmosphere, the environment of the organization. You're basically setting it up for failure. Wouldn't you say that?
Yeah, I agree. Like everything is appropriate to that environment. And honestly, as senior leadership, we control or should control or influence that culture, that environment, so that things do transition smoothly.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the whole thing, is we have to take care of others around us, and then we're able to basically take care of ourselves at the same time. And if you catch there, it said including our family, coworkers, and friends.
Yeah.
Now, I didn't put them into any type of order, but some people would put certain order, right? Like I tend to put my family. I want to put my family first, and my friends, and then my coworkers. And I say that I usually lump them all together as all family. That's just how I feel. Like I told a kid just the other day, I was like, you don't understand. I was talking about a mistake he may have made, and I said, you don't understand. I'm away from my wife and children. You all are my family here. but you would still be my family there if we were, just, and I was trying to explain to him how, the service has become my family over the years. It's funny how I'm closer to those, and there's nothing against my brothers and sisters, my brother and sisters and mom and them. It's just I've spent more time with the soldiers, so you tend to bond with them a little bit more. You're closer, just things like that. So, but you got to be able to put all them first.
Yeah, and that's true. Like you have to be, and that's another. So here we go again with the balancing act. As a young leader, you may dedicate too much time to your soldier, and you may be robbing your family of some of that time, if that makes sense. So that balance, that dichotomy, however you want to, kind of word it, but there are times that, especially for us and what we do as a junior leader, that to me is the position as a sergeant, E5 or corporal that had the most difficult time, because you're the first line of defense for that problem soldier. And we all know that sometimes soldiers can monopolize so much of our time that we're now our service to our family, our coworkers, our church, whatever else outside of, that moment. So another balancing act that we have to, you got to learn it, and you learn it through, to me, you learn it through experience.
Right.
Early. Yeah. And it strained, I'm going to tell you, it strained my marriage a little bit because I was so dedicated to that soldier and getting my soldiers that I'm working Saturdays. And, I remember I went on a Valentine's Day to visit a soldier who had been incarcerated, and but that wasn't good for my marriage. Yeah. And later on, we went to a marriage retreat with the chaplain, and we got some things together, and was a turning point for us in our marriage. But it can cause some strain in your life, man, if you don't understand these things and these balances. So,
no, I think you're exactly right, my man. Yeah. So let's move on to number 2.
Consider others' interest as important as your own. Much of the world suffers simply because people consider only their own interests. People are looking out for number one, but the way to leave a legacy is to also look out for others. It is so ironic that I got this one. It is, because I have worked for people or with people, or, that I've had subordinates that all they cared about was their circle, their sphere of influence was their own. They didn't care about nothing outside of their selves. And I was getting an evaluation, I was getting initial counsel by the Bearded Ninja. This guy gets a shout out in every episode. He's gonna start paying for these. The Bearded Ninja,
paid advertising.
And granted, this was late in my life. We're gonna start advertising this beard oil. All right, stop it. No, seriously. He sat me down and he's like, okay, so at this level, we should no longer be looking at what you're doing to impact this organization. And I was like, well, what do you mean? He says, we need to look at your influence outside of these walls of this organization, because you're a senior. Before you were senior, yeah, but you should be looking at, all right, so not only what's your influence within the NCO Academy where we work, but what about the division? And then we did some certification for some other installations. So now we're talking an Army-wide influence, and not just focusing on what Haley needs to do. Now let's not just focus on Haley's college. Let's focus on somebody else and what we need to do to help them. And I honestly, I'm gonna tell you, Brian, I think that's why you and I both were selected at some point by the Army to be promoted a few times. It's because you're not an only lookout for Brian guy, and I've never been that guy either. Well, I have been when I was a very young leader, but I think that makes an impact. I think that's where they see that potential for promotion and growth, is because they're looking at our evaluations and like, this dude is not, his influence in his organization is there, but look at his influence outside of it, and look how big that is. So that's what this one is, not focusing on just, sports analogy, right? Tom Brady doesn't go out there and say, hey, I want to achieve this individual thing. No, he goes, I want to go out and cheat and get another Super Bowl.
Stop.
I didn't think you would catch that.
I'm going as soon as you say Tom Brady.
No, but seriously, the quarterback doesn't go out and say, "I want to be the MVP."
So you think about that, what you brought up. He says he basically takes a pay cut almost every other year
Yep.
to allow for salary, to open up so they can bring in more players that he can play with to earn those. That's an unselfish move in a sense.
Yeah, and that's what they're going to look at. That's part of Brady's legacy as an NFL quarterback, right? Is that he does that. Michael Jordan took a pay cut to make the team better. My favorite, Magic Johnson, Pat Riley said, "Hey, I get it. You like to pass. I need you to score." And he went out there and started scoring more, and they win a championship. You know what I mean? Like, okay, if that's what you need me to do for the greater good, yeah, I prefer to throw out these assists, but let's do the greater good. I'll score more. And that's what he did. And his assist numbers are down, but the team wins a championship. So his legacy is he sacrificed for the greater good of the entire organization.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so it's funny that particular one came up also because I just had a conversation this week with a good friend I've made here, who I don't think I ever want to lose contact with. He doesn't have like social networking or anything like that. I just have to figure out how to stay in contact with him. But he's also within the E8 range, and we were talking about moving somebody to a certain position from how we'd like to recommend an individual to go to another organization because, one, it'll be a good fit for him, and two, it'll help boost the performance of that organization in the time of need. At no point was it, did we want him here because it's going to make us look good or anything like that. It was really like, hey, how can we lift this guy up to get him further along? The crazy thing is that particular individual's boss was just furious that he was going to leave their organization and all this. I'm like, that to me, like, you're holding somebody back because you're being selfish, because you want your organization. And I got it. Yes, you do want your organization to be better. But at the same time, why don't you give somebody else a chance to also to step up? So this person would leave and take on a larger role. Then you allow somebody within the ranks to do the same thing as step up and take on a larger role. Not too long ago, I'd say about 2 years ago, I was talking with, I don't even know if he's retired yet. He's probably finishing his time up, but Sergeant Major Sean Ward, he was a great guy. He told me over the phone, because we had a conversation over the phone, because I was seeking some mentorship. He told me over the phone, he said, listen, if there's one thing I could ever leave in people's minds is you can never hold somebody back for the better of the organization. You have to let them go to do better things for themselves. And it will, in turn, make your organization better over time. And I couldn't agree more with him. And since that conversation, I think of this: consider others' interests as important as your own, because at some point, it's kind of like karma, or you reap what you sow type thing. It's going to come back to you. It's going to be the right way. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So that's really funny you mentioned that. So I had a desire to go to be a warrant officer at one point. Well, to be a warrant officer, you have to work in the warehouse and you have to hold a certain position. So I was a sergeant and I had been working in the same job for a few years, and I tried to go to the warehouse and they would not let me go to the warehouse. And so I told them, hey, these are what my kind of goals are moving forward. I need that in order to submit a packet to become a warrant officer. And I was held back because the organization needed me to stay where I was. So they were going to get somebody from the warehouse in exchange. It was going to be a 1-for-1 swap out, but because of what I already was doing, they did not let me leave. And thus the reason I never, ever became a warrant officer, which I'm now happy that I didn't become. But sometimes you got to cut. Hey, I got it. Brian is my guy. He is my go-to. He makes things happen, but I'm making Brian's career stagnant because I'm not letting him move. It's time for me to cut loose and let him go, and somebody else can come in and maybe they do it better. Maybe they're better than Brian, but I don't know if I hold Brian back. So yeah, and you mess up people's career. Like, honestly, let's say I did get out as that Sergeant E5. Somebody didn't let me go to warrant officer school, and that's why I had to retire as an E5. That they affected my entire life because they didn't want to let me lead the motor pool.
Yeah. No, exactly. You know, and
Yeah.
I'm going to make a bold statement here, a really bold statement of sometimes I think people do that and they hold people back like that because of their own complacency, and they become lazy in their ways in a sense too. Because you think about it. If I have somebody who's going to move on to a better job or something with more responsibilities or anything like that, and I move somebody up, I've got to now work with that person that's been moved up. I've got to train them. I've got to help them. I've got to go outside of my normal routine of things to ensure that that person is successful, right? And that to me is, well, I don't want to let this person go because right now I like how things are. I'm being selfish. I'm being lazy. And that's the type of, that's why I said it's kind of bold in a way, because people don't like to be called lazy, or people don't want to realize that they're being complacent in their ways. And we have to constantly be evolving in our leadership, and that's part of our legacy, right? So that's just what I thought about it.
Yeah, that is. Yeah, you're right. And so I just got to throw it out there as my favorite phrase I learned from a commander one time. And when people hold you back, sometimes it's your own fault. You're a victim of your own success. You're so good at something that they feel like they can't survive without you.
Mm-hmm.
Victim of your own success. I used to hate that phrase, but that commander used to tell me that. But
yeah,
I used to get it from him quite a bit.
Yeah, we'll never talk about the one time it happened to me. Ooh, you know what I'm talking about. All right, hey, so
yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah, peaceful bliss.
All right, so you can stop now. Love your neighbor. This is number 3, y'all. Love your neighbor even if you don't like them. It's interesting how we're often told to love each other or love our brothers, but we're never told that we have to like them. Liking people has to do with emotions. Loving people has to do with actions. And what you will find is that when you love them and do good by them, you will more often than not begin to like them. All right. There's tons of people that I can tell you right now that I've dealt with within my career over the past almost 21 years that I really did not like. I didn't want to be around them. I didn't like their attitude. It's just those things. But at the same time, I know now, and I wish somebody would hit me across the head when I was much younger. I can tell you that. I know now, though, that I still have to treat them with a certain dignity and respect constantly, because I do believe in that. You reap what you sow. All right. And if I sow love, then I receive that back. If I sow kindness, I reap that back. But if I sow into that earth loathing, hatred, disrespect, just all those nasty words, then I'm going to get that back. And I may get it back even worse than what I gave it. And that's just it. I think it's a mentality that I've learned to live with. And that's why we've talked about it before. When I see people, I try to smile at them, and I try to greet them. And I'm not saying my way is a perfect way. I'm just offering this up as a solution. But knowing that I have to still love them, as human beings, it's just, I don't know. It's definitely changed. I think we've said this before, Ed. It was quite some time back. You said something to someone, and I can't remember who it was. And you had a conversation. You said, no, you don't really know him that well. You were talking about me, and you said he doesn't really hate people. And that has stuck with me, Ed, for a very long time. I mean, you said it a few years back, and ever since then, it's just like, and I never noticed that, because that's what I've been striving for. But once you said it, it's like clicked something. It's like, you know what? Yeah, he's right. I don't hate anyone. I can't. Although I dislike their attitudes, the way they talk to people, or any of that stuff, I can't hate them, because at some point I have to realize that may have been me at one point, and they deserve a chance.
Yeah, sometimes, I mean, and then there's been people that I was like, I really don't like this person, but from a distance, and then a task or something puts us on something together, and I'm like, okay, they're really not that bad. It's not, I don't know. It was kind of you know what I mean? Like you judge them, and then you're like, oh, well, they're not that bad. Well, even at the NCO Academy, when I first got there, you know, everybody was like, oh, the infantry guys are going to treat y'all bad because you're support. And so I went into my platoon, and in my platoon, I had a Cav scout and an infantry platoon sergeant. And I went in kind of like, you know, I don't care if they like me or not. And then after I worked with them a little while, I was like, these guys are okay. They're not, you know what I mean? Like they're not that bad. Like, so you realize, okay, I like them now. So the only thing is, I'm gonna tell you, Brian, I think the love thing is a little strong here, but hey, this guy has a lot more better credentials than I do. But Mr. Rome, I think love is a little strong for this. I know we overuse the word and stuff, but I do think it's important. The dignity and respect, that's absolute.
Yeah.
Like I've worked with guys that were arrogant and self-centered and only worried about themselves, and I just do not like that type of person. But I treated them with dignity and respect. And then they returned it. And then when they didn't return it, I may have threatened that one person, but that's only one because he was nasty to me. But I usually do not. I return. I give it to them, and then when they return, I return that kind of treatment. But
yeah,
and I think that's part of who we are. And again, we're talking about legacy here, right? And I really want that to be my legacy. Yeah, you know, whether he liked them or not, he always treated them the same.
Yes. And you know what, though? You don't have to treat everybody like the exact same way, but you should always treat them with the same respect, dignity, and that openness or kindness, because over time people start feeling that shift of the climate, the environment, whatever it is. And at the same time, when I look at maybe it's somebody who I do dislike their attitude or how they talk to people, and somebody comes right to mind right off the bat with that, and you may remember, but I still talk to that person, and I try to give him advice, and I try to be there for him, but obviously things didn't work out for him. I got it, I understand, but I'm not going to change my attitude towards him. I'm still concerned. I'm still concerned for him. I want to make sure his health is okay and his mental stability is okay, all these different things. But I think what happens is when we do that, I used to ask kids all the time, when you're dead, and I know this is a real morbid type of thing to ask somebody, but I used to say all the time, what do you want your tombstone to say? And I all the time, what do you want your tombstone to say? And then I think this falls in that legacy thing. Now take whatever it is you would like it to say, and then do what we call reverse planning, or, and just reverse plan all the way back to how you should be now. How is that actually going to affect what you want it to say, right? Loving, whether it be a loving father, great friend, amazing leader, and just really cared about people. Like, if that's what my tombstone says, now I got to live that. I don't want some false stuff about me on some stone in the middle of a cemetery. You know what I'm saying? I need to live those aspects, and to love your neighbor even if you don't like them. It's kind of funny. It's just that I don't know. It's weird when you start doing that and you stop showing a ton of hatred towards people. It's almost like this whole switch turns, and you can focus on other things because you're not consumed with the negative energy, I guess you could say. With that, ready to move on to number 4, my man?
All righty. Let's see what we got here. We got maintain. Oh, man. Woo.
This is my favorite one of them all.
Maintain integrity at all costs. There are very few things you take to the grave with you. The number one thing is your reputation and good name. When people remember you, you want them to think, she was the most honest person I knew. What integrity. There are always going to be temptations to cut corners and break your integrity. Do not do it. Do what is right all the time, no matter what the cost. Wow.
Ed, before you go any further, don't say anything. And I'm not going to release any more information than I have to. But before we started this show, we had a conversation. You remember? You probably remember the whole thing, definitely.
Yeah.
But there was something where I said, nope, just keep doing the right thing. I think that reflects right on that, okay? We're not going to talk, audience, we're not talk about what that is, but it really hit home when he read that. And it made me feel good. I'm getting goosebumps, buddy.
Did you set this up?
But
did you intentionally have me read that?
I did not. No, I did not. But doesn't that? That says a lot to you.
Yes, it
right?
does.
Just not what we talked about, but just the idea of maintaining integrity at all costs. When you think about, let me ask you this: you read that. When you think about somebody who maintains integrity at all costs, is there a certain person that just pops in your mind?
Yeah, I'm not giving him another plug, but yeah.
I have one that I would give a plug.
Okay.
And you'd be like, yep, that's definitely him. John Rogers.
Yes. That's a good one. Yeah.
He's probably the most honest, upfront person, trustworthy. And he doesn't. I know he doesn't listen to the show. I may have to send this one to him. Just say, hey, I need you to listen to this. But he's probably one of those people that makes you want to be more honest, more trustworthy, more open. It's just something about him. It's integrity it's almost like it's ingrained within him, and you can sense it and feel it. You know what I'm saying?
It's funny you present him, Brian, because, and I don't remember if we've shared this on the show, but so I had a soldier turn in some work, and they had printed out their work, and he turned in, it wasn't his, and so I went to Sergeant Rogers and presented this to him, and he talked to that soldier, and the soldier was up front and just told him, hey, this is what happened. The papers were mixed up. I'm telling you, I did not intentionally do this. And he's just eyeballing this soldier, right? And the soldier's talking, and you can kind of see the soldier's eyes start to well up a little bit. And he dismissed the soldier. He sent the soldier back to class. And he said, that soldier is telling the truth. He said that soldier will not be dropped from the course. He'll be counseled because we have to. He will not be dropped from the course because that soldier was honest with me. So it's just funny you kind of mentioned him with the whole integrity, because he felt like that soldier had good integrity just by, when I tell you he was watching that, every word that soldier spit out, Sergeant Rogers was like, eyeball, kind of head shaking, two-way communication. And then he sent that soldier back to class, and he said, Sergeant Haley, you'll counsel him. He will not be recommended for dismissal. It was an honest mistake, but he did turn in somebody else's work. And that was the end of it. So just, his integrity and his ability to read people, that soldier had good integrity, saved that soldier's career. And honestly, like a year later, that soldier emailed me. He was getting promoted, and he thanked me for believing him and not dismissing him from that course.
Yeah, when it comes to things like that, where being honest and upfront, I would definitely tell you. We all have our moments, especially in the service. Like, I can do it a little bit quicker if I just don't do it this way, and I do it this, and I cut these corners, right?
Yeah.
But when you do that, then you risk getting somebody hurt. Damaging equipment. You risk a whole mess of things, right?
Yes. Yeah.
But every time I'm faced with something like that, especially after meeting John, I often think, what would John do? Literally, if he was standing right beside me, if John Rogers was standing right beside me, I would be like, oh, I got to do the right thing. You know what I mean? Like, I almost feel like he's, because he's really is a great guy, amazing guy. It's just something about him and his presence always makes you want to kind of do the right thing. I don't know of him wanting to fudge any, like, even if you think about it, there were times where anybody could have just changed something or done something else just so they didn't have to do the extra work. And he would always kind of go back to, well, no, we got to do it. We got to complete this task just to make sure everything was done correctly. Even though it could have just been fudged or whatever. And some people may have fudged things like that in the past, but not with John. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So I can give you an example. I managed the training at the academy. So I would go to him and say, hey, you haven't done your training yet. And I'm going to tell you, there were some people in the senior positions would be like, just mark me down. And first of all, I told him they put the wrong person in charge of this. If you want me to just mark you down, because I'm not doing that. But he would make a joke out of it about me hassling him, but he would do his training. So if he was doing it and there was only 2 people above him, right, in green suits, if he's doing it, everybody should be doing it. And he was very good about, hey, thanks for reminding me. Oh, you're here to hassle me. I must be due for my training. But he always did it. He never once said, can you just give me credit? So even when he was transitioning out of the academy and he really wasn't going to be there for the end of that quarter, he still did the training when I asked him to, instead of being like, hey, just give me credit, I'm going to be gone. You know what I mean? So that's the integrity. And the one thing you didn't mention is when you compromise your integrity, you compromise it with everybody. Because when that soldier, that subordinate, that coworker figures out that you fudge those numbers, they want your integrity completely. Now that is your legacy. You're a liar. That's your legacy.
I'm not going to tell you what organization I was a part of or the people that was a part. I can't. I don't want to give those details. But I've given people a PT test before, and they would actually try to think that I would fudge some numbers for them, and there's no way I would ever do it. I can't do it within me. I think back, even now, back then when what I'm talking about though, that would be there may be a few years back, maybe it's recently. I can't tell you exactly when, but even I would think, what would John Rogers do? I guarantee he wouldn't have done that, And that's the type of life you want to live, is someone, wow, such and such. He was always honest with me, or he wouldn't compromise his integrity even if I would have asked him. That's somebody who I want to look up to. To me, that's kind of do what is right all the time, no matter what the cost. So if you fail a PT test, you're going to get flagged. That's just how it is.
And so real quick before we move on to the next one. So one time I had a sergeant that worked for me, and I used to take the guy home because he lived around the corner from me, one vehicle, whatever, wife, kids. So I was taking him home, and the next day is the height and weight and the PT test. And he says to me, yeah, I really hope tomorrow my neck is about a 17 and a half and my waist is like a 38. I said, I'm not sure why you're giving me your measurements that you need, but let's hope that that's what they are tomorrow, because if you're relying on me to make them that ain't happening. Now get out, you're home.
Yeah.
He didn't measure. And he got flagged. And then I went to school and they lifted the flag so he could go to another duty station. And this dude had the nerve to call me and be like, hey, I didn't get an award when I left.
Oh, wow.
I said, are you kidding me
crazy.
right now? I know what your measurements were. They let you leave. Like the Army, they just pushed you through the system. You ain't getting no award. Don't call me no more. But he give me his measurements. Yeah, I sure hope tomorrow I come out to be these. And your story just reminded me of that, Brian.
Exactly.
It's like, I'm not compromising my integrity because
it's crazy.
It's so much to it. So if let's say I did fudge his numbers and now they find out. Now I'm in the process of possibly losing my rank, not being able to bring home the same amount of money to my family. You think that I'm going to compromise my well-being and family's well-being for you who didn't do the right thing and get to the numbers you needed? Mm-hmm. No, I'm not compromising my integrity for you. But apparently something gave him the message that maybe I would. Maybe because I was giving him a ride home, he thought we were friends and I was going to do that for him because he was my friend. But absolutely not. If it was my friend, they'd still get the same numbers they really got. So,
yeah. And you had to think about this too, though, Ed. Where if we reflected back, let's reflect back to rule number 1 and rule number 2. 1 was life is best lived to service of others, and 2 was consider others' interests as important as your own. Those 2 do not mean it's okay to violate your integrity to do things for them. It's you keep your integrity and you still try to do things for them at the same time. But if they can't meet that standard, whatever it is, and we're talking Army's standards here, that maybe there's, let's say somebody in a warehouse, right? And they decided they want to just start chucking these, they work in a warehouse where you deal with a lot of boxes or food. Food's always a real dangerous thing, right? And they drop food on the floor all the time and it's constantly getting contaminated. Well, I'm sorry, but my integrity says, hey, we need to do something about this. instead of, we're not going to cover this up and repackage it and just send it on its way, because at some point down the line, something's going to happen. And that's, to me, that's where we have to look at is these are all steps, and they shouldn't violate each other. I think as influencers, and this is just a value that I hold, I think as influencers, as leaders, and even as non-commissioned officers, I truly feel the bedrock of everything we do lies upon integrity. Everything.
I can agree with that, Brian. I can agree.
All right, so let's move on to the next one. Number 5. You must risk in order to gain. Whew, man, of the things that I have risked through the years, let me read on. In just about every area of life, you must risk in order to gain the reward. In love, you must risk rejection in order to ask that person out for the first time. In investing, you must place your capital at risk in the market in order to receive the prize of a growing bank account. When we risk, we gain. And when we gain, we have more to leave for others. Risk, I would just tell you this. Risk mitigation is very important. Definitely in the Army, definitely, just outside of the Army, whatever it is, safety-wise. But at the same time, we also have to look at, if I don't go out on a limb to trust someone to do something, right? Or, just to trust someone to get something done. I'm putting my eggs in that person's basket to get this thing done, even if I don't know they can do it. Now I can help them along, all that stuff. But I'm also creating a little bit of risk there because I don't know if they can complete that project, But at some point, they've got to learn and grow. And I have to enable that. And by risking the possibility of failure, which we will talk about failure in a little bit. I think that's around number 8. I have to risk that failure just to ensure maybe the betterment of that person, of the organization, and just even myself at some point too. If you think about it, if I'm taking care of those two things, those two things are going to take care of me. So I really think I've done a few things in my time where I've risked things the wrong way, and then there's all the other times that I risk things the right way. And I can tell you, Ed, I don't know how you feel about risk and whatnot, but it's almost like in my gut, I know when I've risked something the wrong way, like, oh no, it's like a big oh no, and I feel overwhelmed.
Yeah, you feel weird, like
yeah,
an empty kind of feeling.
Yeah. But then when I risk something that seems like it should go the right way, I literally feel like this joy, like, oh, yes, just like, yes, I can't believe it, that type of attitude. How about you? How do you feel about this whole, you must risk in order to gain?
Well, I mean, so we've talked about before, kind of, all right, I put Brian in charge of a project that I'm confident Brian can handle, but he hasn't done before, right? So that's me assuming some risk. Now, I would probably say, okay, if the suspense is really Friday, I'm going to make Brian's suspense Wednesday. So we have some wiggle room to try to fix it if he does not, achieve the desired result. But just by doing that, we talk about leadership capital on an episode. I'm building me some leadership capital with O'Brien. And when he comes through, he's building some capital with me too, because now I know I can trust Brian to make something happen, but it's a risk. I'm the one that's going to get the butt chewing if that spreadsheet that I give to Brian is not done, or the database isn't correct, or whatever it is. I'm going to assume some risk, but we have to, because then look again, Brian achieves it. I have a gain in capital with him. He gains confidence from me. So we gain some things through assuming those risks. So there are times, but we have to really, you got to do some assessment too. You can't, or analysis too. You can't just assume risk to assume risk either, right? Like, we have to look like what could be the second, third, fourth order effects if this fails, because all risks aren't great, but when they come in, man, it feels good that, hey, I took a chance and it paid off.
So it's funny you say this. Recently, I would tell you, probably within the past 2 weeks, I went out on a limb with some risk that I would say, let's see, how do I say this without giving too much information? I would just say that it kind of got me chewed up and down just a little bit and made me kind of feel smaller than I should, than I am. But at the same time, I knew it was a risk that had to be taken to understand the capabilities of what needed to be done. You see, so I needed to make it a learning lesson, not only for me, but those around me. So everyone saw the big picture. And then once it happened, when I made this decision and went through it, after everything was said and done, then I talked to multiple other E8s within the organization, and I sought their guidance, or just vented with them a little bit to try to kind of feel out what we could do. And we literally, before the event that was taking place finished, fixed the problem to a certain extent. All right. So basically, we were able to get what we needed, and now we're just waiting on it type thing. But I felt like I was kind of risking something because I didn't know what the capabilities are. Now, I did this once before when I was younger. But this one time before was very, very bad. Very bad. It actually happened about 18 years ago when I was here in Korea before. When I was a young specialist, I think it was a private actually. I may have been a PFC. Myself and a guy that, he's no longer with us. He passed away a few years ago. But we decided to take an LMTV, four-wheel driving.
Oh, yeah.
We locked that bad boy in a four-wheel drive, and we're in an area where there's plenty of area to just ride it wherever you want to. What we didn't know was there was a pond there. I ended up putting that LMTV in the pond at about a 45-degree angle with the face down and the rear end up. It was stuck, very stuck. So that risk I took was a bad idea. Should never have done it. I shouldn't have tried to push the limits, so to speak, as I was talking earlier, which is different, much different. In that same story, I walked around to all these different big trucks. We call them HEMTs in the Army. They're very large, and they have huge chains with them. And I took all the chains from every single one of those vehicles. It's probably 8 or 9, whatever. I don't know the number. It was quite a few chains, and the chains are heavy, so I was huffing it that night. And this all happened at night. And I linked these chains across the pond and hooked them to one of the large trucks and tried to pull it out. Well, we tried on the backside. It didn't work. So we were going, we're just going to go forward. So we tried to. Ended up breaking the universal joint to the drive shaft.
Oh,
yes. From the first four wheels to the back 4 wheels. So now I have 2 trucks stuck with a chain that's tight enough for you to walk across and it not bow. Yeah. So you can imagine that type of risk. Nah, bad idea.
yeah.
Now, I tell people this all the time. I don't tell them all the time, but I try to teach them about, making good decisions and things like that. If I have a small conversation, I don't put it out in a massive group now. Well, anybody that listens to the show is going to hear it. And there's still one guy out there, I think, has pictures of this very incident. Daryl Palmer. He's in Florida, retired. But I think about the risk. We decided we wanted to test the limits. We wanted to risk it and see what the LMTV was capable of. Bad idea. That wasn't the right place, the right time. There wasn't the right safety factors in place. Somebody could have got hurt. All kinds of things could have happened. But at that moment in my life, I was so young and so stupid that I didn't really think about those things. Now that I'm older, before I go into something, and many times I'll think about multiple little pieces, but I'm not going to think of everything. So when I talk about like that incident that just took place this, past 2 weeks, I thought about many risk factors that could happen, and I thought about ways to mitigate that risk, but I'm not going to capture everything. And sometimes we have to just say, okay, you know what? I think we can do this. Let's go for it. Or I know it could work. And, when things didn't work the way I wanted it to, we were able to make adjustments and make it work. So either way. But that's my little piece on risk.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely did not pay off the first time then.
No, not one bit. So what do we got next, my man?
So next is you reap what you sow. In fact,
I may have said that earlier.
you always reap more than you sow. You plant a seed and reap a bushel. What you give, you get. What you put into the ground then grows out of the ground. If you give love, you will receive love. If you give time, you will gain time. It is one of the truest laws of the universe. Decide what you want out of life and then begin to sow it. Well, I mean, and this one here, I guess where I work with some folks, and sometimes the way they talk to people is very unprofessional, and then they can't understand why people talk back to them that way. And I'm like, but you just did the same thing. So it's seems kind of like you get that. So that's that person's legacy. Like they're always going to be known as that person who's disrespectful. So not a good legacy to have. As any type of leader, heck, even a subordinate, you don't want that kind of, you know what I mean, like legacy. So this is good. This is a good one though, because I like where the last sentence: decide what you want out of life, and then begin to sow it.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, and I would definitely tell you, Ed, that if you think about it, let's just think back when we were each in the classroom teaching soldiers to be leaders, right?
Yep.
It wasn't that we didn't just teach what was to be taught, or we didn't just facilitate what was to be taught, but we also gave experiences and came up with questions to help them learn, because we knew at some point, and I guarantee you probably said the same statement that I said in the classroom multiple times was, hey, I'm getting older. At some point, I will no longer be a part of this organization, and I want to see you become successful and take my spot.
Yeah, yeah. Hey, that, Brian, that really just you really got me with that, because when you think about it, so the Army is going to keep going on. I mean, we've been around for a little while. I don't know if people knew that, but yeah, the Army's been around for a bit. But the next generation is going to be better than our generation. Why? Because we're planting that seed now. And when they get better and smarter and stronger, that's us reaping a bushel. You and I are going to be sitting on a porch somewhere, having a drink of our choice, whether it be adult or sweet tea, whatever you drink. But we're going to be sitting on a porch someday. And guess who's going to be defending us? Guess who's going to be protecting the United States and its interests?
Yeah.
Those soldiers that you and I planted those seeds in while we were teaching, while we are leaders, while you're a first sergeant, while I'm a master sergeant. Those soldiers that's our reaping our bushel. We're going to be sitting back like, I'm safe and secure because I planted a seed when I had my chance as a soldier. And it's the same thing in any organization.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and the thing is you don't realize what you're doing completely, or they don't either. But over time, I think back of the words of wisdom of others that have been, great leaders in my past, and I learned from, and it helped me. When I mentioned Sean Ward, and he said, don't hold people back for the organization. Instead, move them forward for themselves to help them. That sticks with me. Or when I think of, I've said this before, Sergeant Major Brian, and he said we had 300 some whatever people in this organization. If each one of you did one good thing today, that's 300 something good things done today. It's those small. I mean, they seem like small little statements, but when you actually put them into effect, they're huge. Like, if you think about it, if one day, those 300 people went and did, all 300 did one good thing for somebody else, that's huge. He planted a small seed that created this massive bushel of good things. And that's the type of attitude to have. Now, obviously, you're going to have people who are negative in this world. They're very pessimistic, or they just want to do harm to others or bad things. Yeah, that's going to happen. I understand that. And whether it doesn't have to be in the military. It could be a civilian entity. It could be somewhere in the government somewhere. It could be of a community, no matter what. But the thing is if you're trying to do the right thing, you're trying to plant those seeds. There's an old saying about the mustard seed, that you plant a mustard seed, it could move a mountain at some point. You think about that. It's some things are just going to keep going and growing. When you think about let's just think about the Revolutionary War, right? You're a big historian, right, Ed?
Okay. We won't say I am, but I am.
You are. You're huge in history. You think about the Revolutionary War. If they didn't make that conscious decision to basically say, no, we're not taking your taxes anymore. We're not dealing with this. We're not dealing with your rules. We're taking our country for ourselves. If they didn't do that, I mean, we basically, if they didn't make that decision then, it may have been made down the road, who knows, but we would still be British, part of the British Empire at the time.
Yes, and we would be breaking for tea here shortly. So yeah, you're right. No, but you're right.
Yeah.
Like you're absolutely right about that.
Yeah, I mean, you think about it, reap what you sow. I mean, when you think of the names of George Washington, Abraham Lincoln, Thomas Jefferson, let's see, who else? Ronald Reagan. I mean, you think about like famous presidents, right? They reap what they sow. They really try to do some amazing things, and look what has happened. You know, I mean, we have the country that we have in America because of the likes of George Washington. We have some of the best, you know, I guess you say laws in a sense, because of like people like Thomas Jefferson. We have the freedoms across all races, ethnicity, gender, because of the words of Abraham Lincoln. Right? You think about those things. I mean, to me, those were some of the people who they sowed a small seed of whatever it is they were sowing, and it's compounded over the years. I mean, we still read some of the works that they've done, or people still use what they did as examples of leadership and influence. And to me, I love it. I dig it completely. Hello? Clarice? Ed? Hello, Ed. Oh, my bad. No, I got you. I was talking about the history and the influence of, you know, and how Lincoln and Washington and all of them, and Thomas Jefferson, they influenced the greatness and how they just sowed a small seed, and look at how it's grown.
Yeah, I mean, throughout history, not just American history, there's plenty of examples of them, you know, seeds being planted back in the day, you know, all the way back to the Romans. But yeah, maybe they didn't see their bushel that they reaped, but it's there. Like, so just because you as an influencer or a leader, you know, you may be planting a seed now, and you may not see that influence, you may not see that impact, but at the end of the day, that legacy is there, and somebody's gonna still remember that type of connection. So like you said with the founding fathers, like, yeah, they don't know what life is like now, but if we invite them to dinner, like I talk about on our instinctive responses, let's see, we could, but yeah, they don't know, but I mean, they've had an impact. There's still things that came about back then that are still in place. There's things that Napoleon did that's still in place, and forms of government. So, you know, that are still in place, and they're in place for a reason. They've stood the test of time for a reason. And so when they planted that seed, you know, here we are. We're the ones benefiting from it. So I think that's important, and that's part of their legacy, and that's why we still talk about these people in history. That's why we still study. That's why they still make documentaries and movies and all these things about these folks, is because that is their legacy.
Absolutely, man. I couldn't agree anymore. All right, number 7. Hard work is never a waste. No one will say, it is too bad he was such a good hard worker. But if you aren't, they will surely say, it's too bad he was so lazy. He could have been so much more. Hard work will leave a grand legacy. Give it your all on your trip around the earth. You will do a lot of good and leave a terrific legacy. Man, I've got these 2 sergeants that work basically for me. They're kind of like a direct report to me kind of thing. And I just told a kid just the other day, not these 2 guys, because I was just telling him how, you know, you got to become noticed. I was trying to teach him, kind of mentor him a little bit about, listen, do the things that need to be done and do them as best as you can, and people will notice these things. And I said, take for instance, and I named off those two sergeants that work for me, and I said, those two guys, I know if I ask them to conduct something or get something done, it will be done, and it'll be done to a level of professionalism every time that is just phenomenal, especially given their ranks. I even told, I said, I'd give them one my left leg and one my right leg if I had to, just that's the type of people they are. I love their hard work and how hard that they pursue things. And I know what you're going to say when I say this. So one of the things that I like to do, I like to work out, and I like to do the CrossFit thing. If you listen back episode with Jimmy Summer, he talks a lot about how he changed his workout routine. So I started doing that. Well, and I started looking up things. I know, but I'm getting to something here. So I started looking up some of the workouts and how to do some of the exercises because I wanted to learn more and understand it. And then I stumbled upon a couple people who may have known as they're considered the fittest people on earth type thing. There's one, Rich Froning, and then the other one is Matt Frazier. Both have won the CrossFit Games 4 times consecutively each. And I think about when I watch those guys and how much hard work they put into it and the dedication and just so when I go to the gym and I'm still starting to feel sorry for myself, this is so hard, or I don't want to go on anymore. I could just shorten the number of reps, or I could do this. And I think to myself, of those people, I think, well, no, they kept going. Why did they keep going? Why do I have to stop? So I'm going to push myself a little bit more. And that's just a small example, though, right? So that same thing could happen, whether it be a warehouse maintenance guy or somebody who's working in a supermarket and they manage all these people, to keep going, or somebody who works for Duke Energy. Somebody who works for Duke Energy, Ed?
I do know somebody who works for Duke Energy.
So somebody who works for Duke Energy and they think, you know what, I don't have to go this far because it's absurd and no one will ever notice. Well, if you do work that hard, if you do put yourself out there and you keep pushing and pushing, it does pay off in the end. I truly believe that, right? What are your thoughts on that whole working hard is never a waste?
I'm going the other way. So yeah, no, I agree. Lately, I've been watching a lot of. There's a show on the History Channel. And it's called The Strongest.
Oh, yeah, we talked about that.
Yeah, it's called The Strongest Man in History. And they have a young man from Colorado named Brian Shaw, and he is the 4-time world's strongest man, which is second all time. There's a guy that won 5 from Poland, but he's the 4-time world's strongest man. But all that hard work, and this guy, when he travels and all the effort to eat and force feed and all that stuff. Now, some people are going to say, well, it's not healthy, but hey, it's his dream. It's what he wants to be, but it's never a waste. There's no such thing. There's no such thing as a wasted workout. If you get in there and you work out, you did something. You did something more than schmugatelli on the couch at home. So there's no wasted workout. Now, do you have to go in there and have your heart rate at 70, 80% and all this other stuff? Well, you might want to. Doesn't mean you have to. But really, I only did that because Brian brought up CrossFit, so I had to bring up the world's strongest men. So I'm going to tell you, my wife started a new job. She's same job, but she got a different location. And one of the things that stood out as she left, her boss told her, she is such a hard worker. He's going to definitely see an impact when she goes because she works hard. And now at the new location, one of the new so she's a supervisor. So one of the people that work for her has told her, I like working with you because you work. So that's her legacy now in that organization at 2 different locations. She had another guy before she moved. He didn't want to work with her on a weekend because he thought she was going to just sit around and be a supervisor. And then after he worked with her one day, he said, I would work with you any weekend because you get after it. So that's kind of my wife's legacy now within the organization that she works with, right?
Yes.
And that's what you want. You want that, you want that reputation. And then what that builds is they know that she works. So when she's not on the floor working and she's doing the paperwork as a supervisor, they realize, okay, she's doing that because she has to, because any other time she's out here getting after it. So for me, this is one of the ones I definitely would love for my legacy to be, at least, I don't know about hard work, but he worked, not he was lazy. That would be a terrible thing to, you imagine having that on your tombstone. Here lies Edward Haley. Too bad he is lazy. Like, that would be terrible, man.
Yeah. No. It's funny you brought it, and you thought you brought up Tammy, and I know, I mean, yeah, she's always a busybody. She's always on the go. And she seems to, get after it. And when you brought her up, I thought about Michelle, my wife, and like, yes. I'm telling you, the fact that she deals with my two little ones on the daily basis, the way she does, and how she is constantly, because there's no way I could have ever done all the things she's doing. There's no way. I mean, she's involved with everything, and she's not getting paid for, like from an organization. Obviously, she feels like emotionally she's being paid, and our children are being paid, because they get to have their mom around all the time, and she's always trying to do something to help educate them and whatnot, and meeting all of Ethan's needs and whatnot. It's phenomenal. I mean, I couldn't tell you, like, I'll have conversations with her. We talk over the Facebook Messenger all the time, and some of the things that she tells, I'm just like, wow. And you don't get a red cent for any of this, but you're still pushing hard, man. If you remember correctly, not too long ago, I want to say on an episode, I brought up the idea of the dash. So-and-so lived from this date to this date, and then there's the dash in the middle.
Right.
That's what I think about. I think about things like that, man. Like, that's legacy. Like, that dash is legacy. And I think about like how my wife does things. I think about, the friends that I've met over the years that have just been in great impact, like you and John Rogers and the Bearded Ninja and Brian, Sergeant Major Brian, just all of them. I think of those people, and I think about what their dash represents to me, and then how it reflects upon their legacy, and everyone that I named off there, and there's plenty more. Tammy's involved in that. Mm-hmm. Just there's plenty of more. Is every single one of them, I could not use the word lazy with that individual, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
They are always hardworking with everything they do. It's inspirational in the sense, if you think,
Oh yeah. No, and for me, I think that the payoff too is that when you're a hard worker, you're a hard worker usually, and I think that's part of the payoff. But what we as influencers sometimes have to be careful of is, if we have that hard worker in our organization, we tend to ride them till the wheels fall off. We tend to break them down, right? Ride the horse that got us here until it can't ride anymore. So we gotta be careful with that. But yeah, that's a great, that's a good legacy to have. And I think that, and I think another one that I would love to have on my tombstone would be, he was a great mentor. I think that, to me, that's a legacy I would be proud of, So yeah.
Yeah, and that can be hard work too, man. That really can be.
It is hard work.
What do you think? I mean, because you think about it, and we can criticize anyone, but at the same time, are we able to criticize, and not just criticize, but we're able to point out things, but then give them advice that will truly make them better? Or would you just throw out advice that's random instead of actually evaluating what's going on and then come up with actual helpful solutions?
And there's
that is tough.
And there's no cookie cutter solution, because what may help Brian, if I'm mentoring Brian, may not help Ethan if I'm mentoring Ethan. Like, so there's no cookie cutter to it either. And that's what I think makes it really challenging.
Not one bit.
And I think that's why it's valuable to be looked at as a good mentor.
Absolutely, man. I love that was really good. All right, so next one, number 8.
All right. Oh, this plays right into one of my favorite podcasts. Don't give up when you fail. Imagine what legacies would have never existed if someone had given up. How many thriving businesses would have been shut down if they quit at their first failure? Everyone fails. It is a fact of life, but those who succeed are those who do not give up when they fail. They keep going and build a successful life and a legacy. So right away, I'm going to go to sports because I think it's easy. Can you imagine if Chris Webber gives up after he calls that bogus timeout in the NCAA tournament?
I remember.
I mean, we're talking about a Hall of Famer now.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But we're talking about a guy who's a Hall of Famer. What if that was his legacy? If that's where it ended? What if he didn't win Rookie of the Year after that? What if he didn't go on to have, however many All-Star appearances, Olympic gold medals?
Yeah.
That could have very well been, if he had just been like, you know what, I failed, I can't take it, that's it. What if Michael Jordan give up when he got cut from his high school basketball team? You know what I mean? Like we're talking like in the sports world, we're talking about some legacies. Especially Michael Jordan goes to the Air Force Academy because he got cut from a high school basketball team. Now, where's the discussion for this greatest of all time? Like,
yeah, I'll give you another one. What if he quit to realize he's going to be a backup quarterback after being selected 7th round, and that's it? He's like, I'm just going to sit on the bench for a while.
Yeah.
Nope.
I mean, he did quit once.
What? No. Tom
Michael
Brady.
Jordan did quit once.
Oh, I'm talking about Tom Brady.
No. Michael Jordan quit. He quit once. And then he quit again and came back to what he was the greatest of all time at.
You know what, though? I mean, I have a hard time saying he quit. I think he just needed to redirect his focus for a little while because of what happened. You know what I'm saying? Like, his dad played a massive role. And that's why, like, I was never upset by the fact. I mean, I was upset that he didn't play basketball anymore, but it's not like I didn't look at him as a quitter. It's just like, man, that guy's going through some stuff. And I really believe he just had to get away and clear his head, because you think about it. I mean, his dad was a big part of his life. So, but yeah, you could say that.
There's so many examples though, Brian. Like I said, so this leads me to one of my favorite podcasts, the Team Never Quit podcast.
Oh man.
And Lone Survivor, Marcus Luttrell.
Yes.
What if he quit? What if he just gave up in Afghanistan? You know what I mean? Like, what if this dude went back to Afghanistan after all of that? Like, what if his team had quit? What if Murphy never goes up there to make that call and loses his life? Like, so there's so many examples just in that. But that podcast, every episode, there is a what happens when you don't quit. So, like I said, we don't make no money off of that, but that is a good one. If you want some feel-good stories and some heart-wrenching ones, I particularly like, I don't like the story, but I like when there are people on there, usually females, who something has happened to, like the reporter who was attacked in Egypt. Because Marcus Luttrell's like, I tell you what, if I could, me and my boys would have been there. We would have been there. And you can hear him get upset. And it's actually kind of funny to listen to his response. Like, oh, yeah. So, but yeah, there's so many stories like about not giving up. And that's an excellent, amazing legacy to have.
Yeah. Like when I think about that, when I think about the Lone Survivor thing, I mean, you think we wouldn't have had that story. We wouldn't have been able to learn from such an event if he would have just given up. And when you go through, I mean, yeah, you can watch the movie, but you got to read the book to really get to really feel what was going on with that. And I mean, he should have died of dehydration alone, but he didn't quit. He found mud puddles and stuff like that and sipped from them, to keep hydrated. It's just when he talks about there's a point in his story. And matter of fact, he talks about it on the podcast when his dog was shot. You remember that?
Yeah.
And he chased those guys down in his truck and shot. I mean, it was like some Wild West type stuff. But basically, some crazy people shot his service dog in his front lawn, and he wasn't having it. He chased him down. I mean, he's definitely somebody to look to for that whole never quitting. And if you think about it, I would have to also say that because when you read the initial part of Lone Survivor, it kind of goes into the training up to become a Navy SEAL and whatnot.
Oh yeah.
Hard work. What we talk about, hard work is never wasted. Him and his twin brother put in a lot of freaking hard work. I mean, they put it in, and it wasn't wasted because look what happened. I mean, he actually made the teams, and then he went on to be one heck of a hero. And it's and you think about it, we wouldn't have the Murph You know, if for that team, and if you've ever done a Murph,
Go with this again.
Hey, man, the Murph is a beast.
They did it for PT here last week. I was at a rock drill, but they did it for PT here last week.
Oh yeah.
But Brian, we're messing up, man.
What are we messing up, brother?
We're messing up. So we're talking about not giving up,
right?
And we're talking about not giving up when you fail, right?
Oh.
So let's talk about episode 6 and loading a helicopter and it being shot down, and then you reloading a helicopter. What was that guy's name? It's right on the tip of my tongue. Roy P. Benavidez.
The ultimate hero who still needs a movie. Hey, Tom Hanks, where you at, buddy?
Not talking about this guy.
Like, he is the ultimate. Don't give up when you fail. Because goodness, man, come on. Roy Benavidez.
Yeah.
Hard work, never quitting.
Look at these legacies, though. Look at these guys and the legacies, that they've left behind. So we, as influencers, this is the thing. Like, all right, now we know you're not going to go out there, and maybe you're a listener and you're in those kind of positions. We're not asking you to go out and load up a helicopter with, wounded soldiers, but hey, failure is what we learn from. Growth comes from failure, in my mind.
Yes.
When you mess up something or you have something doesn't go right, that's learning opportunities. And that's what you want your legacy to be. Brian messed up, but when he did, man, he never messed that same thing up twice. I
will not put another LMTV in the pond. Nope. Hey, you know what?
Good lesson.
You know what's funny?
That's awesome, though.
Yeah, Ed, you know what's funny, though? I heard something recently, and I don't know where I saw it, but them wanting, like, some people trying to, like, literally try to push to change the name of Fort Hood to Fort Benavidez.
I did hear that. Did you also see that Fort Hood now has an air assault school, and who it's named after?
Who is it named after?
Command Sergeant Major Basil Plumley.
Oh, you got to be kidding me. Really? That's awesome.
They named it the Sergeant Major Basil Plumley Air Assault School.
Another guy who didn't quit, who wasn't going to give up when they were failing. Because you think about it, man, that when you go back to that whole story of, we were soldiers young once. I mean, come on.
Oh, man.
The stuff that they
Ion Drang was just, all odds stacked against these guys. A broken off platoon who separated from everybody else, never gave up.
Yep.
Never quit.
Yep. And some people would see that as a failure or hey, I don't think we're going to make it. Let's call in the people, get us out of here. But no, they kept fighting. They kept driving. That's why I tell people all the time, my heroes are World War II. And I could say further if I want, but World War II, Korean War, and Vietnam War. Like, those are the people that I think it's because I've had a connection with people that have been a part of that, and that's why. But those are my heroes. Those are the guys, just like the things that they've gone through, and to know those stories and how they just kept pursuing for victory or to save their buddies or just to do anything. To me, failing forward is not just a phrase, but it means you just got to, you keep going. Thomas Edison, he'll say,
pull up your bootstraps.
What's that? Yeah. You think about Thomas Edison when he said that, I didn't fail 1,000 times when trying to figure out the problem with a light bulb. I just figured out 1,000 ways not to make the light bulb. I figured it out after a while. So, you think about that. You don't give up when you fail. So.
And there goes the general.
There she is. All right, so we got the last one here, Ed. Before we're going to do this one, then we'll close out this show. It'll be another good show.
All right.
Number 9. Don't ever stop in your pursuit of a legacy. Many people have accomplished tremendous things later on in life. There is never a time to stop in your pursuit of a legacy. Sometimes older people will say, I'm 65. I'll never change. That won't build a great life. No, there is always time to do more and to achieve more, to help more and to serve more, to teach more and to learn more. Keep going and growing that legacy. I think about that too. I don't, Ed, have you seen it before? Like, there's this one chart. I've seen it. I think I've seen it on multiple places. It's a chart, and it shows different people in the stages of life, or the ages in life when they actually were considered wealthy, or they made their millions. And it's insane when you see this chart, because usually all the people that actually pursued it and made it, I'm not talking about people who were the trust fund babies, or they've got a inheritance from their grandparents or parents or whatever. I'm talking about people who actually were poor and became millionaires. Many of them did not earn their first millions until they were almost in their 50s. Normally they're in their 40s, mid 40s, somewhere in there and beyond. To me, some people just give up by then, right? They just accept life as what it is. And I have a hard time with that, man. I tell Michelle all the time. I'm like, listen, once I get out of this Army thing, hey, we're gonna start making moves to try to, kind of escalate our currency that we have in the bank account. If that makes sense. But to me, it's like, why do people just settle and stop? I mean, you think about it. When they say oftentimes that people that continue living, even through their older ages, in their 90s, even up to 100, normally they never stop working of sorts. They do something, right? It's people who just kind of, and I can't say everyone, so I don't want anybody to take this wrong. It's just one of those mentalities that I have in my mind right now that I want to pursue. But to keep going, keep doing stuff every single day, and pursuing, and then that day comes that I drop dead, hey, so be it. But if you keep pushing and pushing, you keep doing stuff every day, it helps keep you going. It helps keep that brain functioning, helps keeps that heart pumping, helps those lungs open up. It's just those limbs moving. To me, that's what it's about. It's keep pursuing no matter what. What did you have to say there, Ed?
There used to be a guy who used to go to the gym at Fort Campbell that I went to. This guy was amazing. This guy had to be every bit of 75, 80 years old. And he'd come in with his little sweatshirt and his wristbands and a headband. And he would get on the pieces of equipment, and he would continue to he wasn't lifting a lot, but he was lifting something. Mm-hmm. And he was still in there trying to get after it. And here he is. It was keeping his blood flowing. I think for me, these people that you're talking about who, achieve so much success later in life, I think it's probably, some of that is probably a product of the lifelong learning that they've done. Like throughout their life, they've picked up little bits here and there. Like, think about yourself. Could 20-year-old Brian achieve the things that current Brian can?
Absolutely not.
Probably not, right?
Yep.
What's the difference? Experience?
Yep.
Well, what do you get from experience? Learning. So you've been learning all these years for that success. Now, at some point, some people just tap out and say, hey, that's it for me. I just want to sit here on the couch and work crossword puzzles. I don't even know if that's a thing anymore, but they don't want to keep moving. And then in our field, a lot of times it's a saying that these folks that do 30 years of military service tend to die within the first few years of retirement because they just stop. So your body's so used to that 6 a.m. wake up and go all day that then you stop it and you deprive it, and your body's just like, well, what do I do now? Yeah. So, but yeah, I think a lot of that success comes from the learning process throughout the course of your life, like a lifelong time.
I have to agree, man. And it's the ideas that you're probably, that those seeds we talked about earlier that are getting planted, they're now growing. They've grown to where you can now pluck that fruit of success. I'm telling you that right now. When I was 19-year-old, I didn't think about the things that we do now. I didn't think podcast was no such thing then, but I never thought about, trying to reach out and branch out and do stuff and try to become successful in X, Y, and Z. I had a couple things on my mind, and I'm not going to mention what those things are, but most people know what a young 19-year-old guy thinks about all the time. But it took time. It took learning from others, lifelong learning, like you said. It's just so much has gone into it. And if I could take just even the last 10 years of what I've learned in the past 10 years and box that up and sell it to someone, Oh man, I'm telling you, it would just or how about I'll just box it up and give it to someone? Well, that's kind of what this podcast is. We're trying to box up all this different stuff that we've learned over the years, and we're trying to give it away so people can learn from it themselves, and then they can make maybe some choices, and they can start doing the things that they want to do to become, to have a legacy or to be a better influencer or a better leader or a better manager or whatever it is that they want within the realm that they're working. So I definitely have to say, yeah, man, it's one of those things that we just have to kind of keep pursuing no matter what. Don't stop.
There's no need.
I think that falls right back into that never quit.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Excellent tie into the never quit. Like, just keep it moving. Yeah. Okay. We're not talking about failing and never quitting, but you're still talking about just keep moving. Don't quit. And continue to learn and grow. And your post-military career, Brian, I'm confident you'll probably be way more successful than you were in your military career. Granted, the window's a little shorter on your timeline to be able to work, well, maybe not for you. For me, it is, but not for you, maybe. But still, you can do something and you can leave a legacy there. And now you've got, multiple. When I think legacy, I think, I have a legacy with my wife. I have a different legacy with my children. You have a legacy within the military. Heck, you have a legacy within an organization in the military while you're there, and then you leave. You can believe that when you leave some of these places, people are like, hey, we used to have this guy and he did X, Y, and Z. And, he changed. Oh, who changed this training schedule to, like this? Oh, it was this guy we had like 3 years ago, blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? So that legacy lives on long after you've left an organization. And I think that's powerful.
Yeah, exactly. I want to read a little something that I found that kind of culminates all this together and really hits upon that last part of trying to never stop the pursuit for the legacy. And it's actually from Grant Cardone, and he talks about keep stacking the wood. It's impossible to have too much wood on your fire. You and your business can never take too much action or have too much success. Don't worry about getting too much authority, being talked or written about excessively, being covered too often, or working too much. With any fire, you have to keep adding wood to keep the heat and the glow. Obsess over how to keep your fire burning. If you don't, it will turn to ashes. Keep throwing wood on your fire until you either start a bonfire or burn the place down. Don't rest and take it easy, and never stop. Your fire has to continually be stoked, and that means more and more fuel, and in your life and business, more actions. It is a myth to believe that successful people just kicking it back. That's a good point, to think about just life in general, Ed, was stoking that fire. When I was a kid, we had a fireplace. We had a wood stove, and if you didn't add more wood to it, well, there was no more heat. So we constantly had to check it. We had to clean it out. We had to constantly add more wood to the fire, and it was just a repetitive process, like never ending. And if we let it go out, well, obviously we had to pay the consequences of being cold. And I think that really plays a big role in our life in general. Where is my firewood? Who's going to chop it down? I mean, these are all questions we can pose if we, metaphorically. Who's going to carry it and pile it up? Who's going to add it to the fire? Well, I have to do all this stuff myself, but I can find help along the way. For instance, if I have to find wood, I can ask for suggestions from someone. And, hey, do you know where I might be able to get some advice on X, Y, Z? So that's finding the wood. And then, well, it seems to be that this is a larger task than what I could normally handle. Hey, Ed, do you mind coming over and helping me? So now I got somebody to help me chop my wood down, and at the same time possibly help me stack it. And then when I'm noticing certain things are going on, I can go ahead and grab those little tidbits, those wood, or those resources that we gained together, and then I can add them to that fire to help keep it going. And then I keep adding it and adding it. It's just, I love the thought about that, man. It's just, it really helps kind of culminate this entire thing. What do you got for him before we start ending this show off, Ed?
So the firewood analogy is pretty good. I kind of like it. And so to me, I'm a little older than Brian. So I have to keep stacking wood for my career. I've had to be like, okay, what is it that's going to keep me, like, keep my fire going and in the military service? So that's why when you started talking about stacking the wood and you read the piece, I was like, this is kind of it. You got to continuously find something, uh, even in the gym, same thing. Like, you got to change stuff up. If you do the same workout every day, eventually you're going to be just left with a pile of ashes, because you're gonna get tired of it, and it's gonna be like, eh. But if you go, hey, like, like I'm doing a workout now, and 1 week you're after 10 to 12 reps, and then the next week you only want to get 6 to 9. But that means you got to adjust your weight, and it changes the workout. And then 1 week it's like dumbbells, a lot of dumbbells, and the next week it's a lot of cables. And those are things that change and keep you going, right? Instead of letting the workout get stale. And it's the same thing in an organization, Brian. So I think that was an excellent way to kind of wrap everything up in a nice, pretty little neat bow, or throw it all in a nice fire.
Absolutely, man. Well, I would tell you, I've got a task for this week, a simple task. It's pretty much kind of like previous ones that we've had, but the task is this. 1, share the episode. So if you listen to it on Spotify, share the Spotify. If you listen to it on Google Podcasts, share it on Google Podcasts. If you listen to it on iTunes or Apple Podcasts, then share it. Also, at the same time, why don't you recommend this particular podcast or even our closed Facebook group to someone you know? Help grow that legacy. Help somebody else become a better them. That if you're doing that right there, you're already hitting some of those points. You're already basically life is best lived in the service to others. So you're thinking about somebody else that you want to help. So you already hit number 1. You consider others' interest as important as your own. That's another thing that you're doing. And you're loving them even if you don't like them. If it's somebody that you want to help become better, you can offer up suggestions, and you can offer this show for them. Maybe there's something on this show. Maybe there's a particular episode that you've heard that you think could really help them become a better them. Maintain integrity at all costs. Well, hey, give us honest feedback. That's what we want from you. Ed and I would love to have some honest feedback. Either leave us something on Facebook, send us a private message, go on our website and leave some comments. You can leave reviews on Apple Podcasts, which would be great for us because that helps us get recognized and known. Leave us that honest feedback. And if you don't like what we're doing, let us know. We don't mind. It doesn't hurt my feelings. I'm going to keep going as much as I can, and I love to have some. Take some risk. Go out on a limb, right? Risk in order to gain. So maybe you risking offering this show to somebody else may help them gain some knowledge, and in turn, you gain some credibility with those individuals. And maybe now you've created a relationship. Wow. And then you'll definitely be able to reap what you sow when you do something like that. And then remember, no matter what, hard work is always going to pay off. So if you fail with this individual and it doesn't work out, you can move on to another person. But don't quit that person. Remember what we talked about. You don't give up when you fail. You don't want to quit them. You want to keep going even if things don't work out with them. Always remember that you're going to be putting these people first. And don't ever stop in that pursuit of legacy, no matter what. So, task was share the show and then also offer something to someone outside that has not heard of the show or anything that you can offer it up to them, all right? With that, I can definitely say that you can find us. If this is your first time listening to the show, please go back, listen to some of our older stuff. We're about to start recording episode 50. Episode 50 is going to be a Q&A. It's going to be our second Q&A show with Ed and I. It's going to be awesome. We're really excited. Ed actually pitched an idea to me before we started recording this, and I think it's going to sound really good if we do that. So if you happen to have a question that you want to be thrown out there for the Q&A show, here's what you can do. You can put it on the closed Facebook group page where I've already posted the question. You just got to type 101 Influence in the search bar if you're not a part of our closed Facebook group. You'll click on that, then you'll hit visit group, and you're going to join our group. Just got to answer some questions and then submit, and then one of us will accept you. So you have to do that. You can offer questions that way. You can send Ed or I a personal message if you just don't want us to, put it in front of everybody, but you still want to ask a question. We can always keep it anonymous. That's easy. We love to do, whatever it is to help others. Or, I mean, you just send us a message in any way to, let us know, hey, this is a question I've been thinking about. This is somebody said at work one time. What are your thoughts on this? Hey, man, we are all about just answering what we think about things. And maybe what we have to say can help someone. Who knows? And that's the whole pursuit that Ed and I have kind of followed with this. And I'm telling you, man, this is episode 40, and we're still going at it. I mean, we've got so many ideas, Ed, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, and I love the freshness of it. Like, we have one plan, and then we come up with some other ideas, and we might change course and then go back. And so it's been the agility we've had with our episodes have been pretty good so far.
Insane, man. Just crazy. So just remember that. With that, I don't really have much more. Do you have anything else for the audience, Ed, before we let them go?
No, that's all I got this week.
All right. Well, with that, I am Brian.
And I am Ed.
And this has been the Instinctive Influencers podcast. We thank you so much for listening. Have a great day.